Hi, this is May.
And I'm Joy.
Welcome to the QWERTY Writing Life Podcast, where we have candid chats about our creative lives.
May and I are friends, writers, and creatives who want to share our endeavors out loud.
On this podcast, we're here to encourage each other, and you too,
and share tools we've discovered or made up.
So you can follow your passions with a little support. So grab your tea
or your coffee,
and let's get started. Hello, everyone, and it is another week. We are so excited to be here with you today. So this is our 38th episode, and we're going to talk about our creative weeks, and then we're going to go straight into the QWERTY challenge that Joanna Penn gave us last week. So Joy, what did you do this week?
So this week I have been editing my novella, and I actually had some amazing breakthroughs that I'm so thankful for this past week. I had a giant breakthrough in understanding my point of view, the perspective in which I naturally write. This has kind of been an ongoing thing, and May's been there with me through all of this, and she knows, like, it's kind of been a struggle, and it's been me trying to write my natural way, but not fully understanding what that was, and just now, thanks to some guidance, am understanding exactly what that natural way is, and that it is, in fact, a real thing. So, I'm not completely crazy. So now I can do it right. And also another thing is I have had a wonderful idea with my 4 Southern fiction. They're all related. I have the novel that's already out, Any Good Thing, and then the novella that I'm working on now, and a short story collection and an epistolary. And they are all similar. They all follow some of the same people, and I have figured out a way to have all of the titles be cohesive. And so that was kind of a little breakthrough, and there's a really neat little thing about where each of those titles comes from. They all come from one person, one character, and I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
It was pretty awesome.
It's been a good week.
It has been. It's been a very busy week and a very oh my gosh, trying to get all this together, but very, very good.
Mine has been a little bit challenging. There's been my husband's out of town, and so I'm taking care of the kids by myself. And there was a car accident on Monday, and everybody's okay, but there's been a lot of follow-up that has had to go with that. The guy didn't have his insurance at all, so there's uninsured motorists. The car's totaled. I have to figure out the whole rental situation and how I'm going to get another car and so on and so forth. So there's been a bit of stress, but there hasn't been a lot of outward creating, but I have read 2 books. Not this week. I finished up this. let me clarify. I read 1 book earlier this year, and then I read another book this week. And what was interesting is Kate Claiborne is the author, and the book that I read first is Love Lettering, which is the latest book by Kate. So I went to her backlist and found out that she had written books before that. She had a trilogy of books, something about Good Luck Charm or something like that. Anyway, so the first one was Beginner's Luck, I believe. And it's her debut book. It's her very first book. So I got to read her last book and her very first book, and those have been exactly, right? So I'm comparing the 2 because I loved Love Lettering, and so I go back and I read, and I see threads between 2019 and 2014, and I think she's had 4 books out total or something like that. And just to be able to see the difference between the first and the last was really interesting. And there are some things that I loved about Love Lettering that is still in Beginner's Luck, as far as author choices and style and that sort of thing. And then I've seen also where she's grown from that baby debut writer to who she is now, because Love Lettering, I just thought it was it's close to perfect. I could not pick something out to criticize about it. It was just one of those books that was yes, this is the full package. And so, which is the whole reason why I went to the backlist. So it was just a really interesting observation, and it ended up being a bit of a science project for me. And it was kind of a cool thing that happened in the midst of all of this crazy and not so cool stuff. So, yeah.
Well, that is amazing. I love how that is the good thing about being a writer is when we read, we're actually still working, but it's so much fun because we're learning as we do that and, getting ideas for our own work and, helping us grow as writers by reading other writers and seeing their growth. That's incredible. All right, so our topic chat for tonight. So I hope you guys were with us last week, and if you weren't, please go back to episode 37 for a very special treat. Joanna Penn was on with us, and we just had the best time chatting with her. And this week is really focused on what she left us with in her QWERTY challenge, and that is to make our affirmations. And so we're going to kind of recap just a little bit of what that is, what that means. But first we want to talk a little bit about just what it was like to get to talk with Joanna.
She was so wonderful and gracious, and just a really, really beautiful person, I thought. She said some things that were really meaningful to me, and I actually went back and listened to it again. So I was there, and then I edited it, and then I went back and listened to it again before this episode just to see what else I learned. And I actually pulled out more from it than the other two times that I had listened and participated in it. So there is a wealth of knowledge there. There's more to be mined, I think. So I feel like I need to go back again until I don't have any more notes to write, just keep going. Just keep going back.
And I feel like that's how it is with everything that she puts out. Every one of her podcasts,
Mm-hmm.
The Creative Pen, anything that she writes on her blog and her newsletters, I feel like I always come away with just so much great stuff. So.
And there were just a few things that I thought were really, really interesting. The first thing was reframing your creativity and your idea of creativity. So, we have these talents that we have in our mind, or it's like this is what creativity is. It's singing, it's dancing, it's paint, it's writing. But really, she found that like being an entrepreneur and being in business was very creative work. And just to take that a step further at this moment, it's almost like everything that we do, we can find a creative aspect to it. If we're parenting, there's definitely creativity that's involved there. If
That's
we
very
are
true.
waiting, if we are in a season of life where we just feel like we are lacking creativity, then I feel like if we reframe the way that we think and what creativity is, then we would probably be able to find a little outlet for that in what we're currently doing. And that might brighten up that season and lead us into a new season where we can create more frequently in the realm of our passion.
Yes. Oh, I love that.
So there was that reframing, and then there was recognizing, and you'll love the alliteration, Joy, I know.
Ooh,
So,
I am loving
I know.
it.
So it was recognizing who you are and where you are. And I thought this was really interesting because she knew her creative process. She knew how she thought. She knew when, or like the signs of when she was becoming worn out and overwhelmed in creative um, aspects
That's
in her
so
life. And I thought that
important.
was very intuitive
Yes.
and so important. Yeah. So I took that the third time I listened I listened to her speak. Just piecing together the fact that a lot of the things that she talked about was because she listened and observed herself in certain situations and saw a pattern. And then once you see the pattern, you'll be able to recognize it early and be able to, oh, how did she say it? She said that you'll be able to preserve your creative self by taking action.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I think
She's
that
so
it's
smart.
one thing. She is so smart. Oh my goodness. So I think it's one thing to begin to notice those things, but then I think it's another to actually begin to implement it. Because for whatever reason, I think, or I know I'm this way, I might know, okay, I'm heading for some burnout here if I don't slow down, or if I don't do this, or whatever, but I don't want to do that. I don't like to slow down. And so I think that it's very important to not only notice it and recognize it, but then to act on it. So
Yeah. And I also realized that I want to read her book, The Successful Author Mindset.
Yes.
Because evidently the whole creative cycle is listed in there, and I really want to learn more about my own creativity, my own process, so I can start recognizing things about that too, and be just a more productive and also careful person. Yeah, that's what I got.
Well, yes, I think the two things were, I was just so thankful that she took the time to come on our show. I mean, we're still tiny, we're just starting out, and she knew that. We're these two fledgling podcasters, I guess you could say. But she gave us her time, and she is so genuinely kind. And seriously, everything that she says, I mean, if you guys don't already listen to The Creative Pen, and especially if you're a writer, definitely add it on. And her podcasts usually run between 40 minutes to an hour, or an hour and 20 minutes, depending. So they're a little bit longer. But I figured out today, because sometimes I can't always listen to a full hour. Like, that's just not in my day. But you can pretty much listen to all of her beginning parts, where she talks about what's going on with her, but she also talks about the industry. She talks about trends that she sees in the future. She talks about all these things that are, I learned so much from that part of the show. So I can listen to that, and then maybe another day I can listen to her interview, and that works a little better with my schedule. So I just, learn something new every single time. But the biggest thing was, I just love her candor and her tough love, right? Okay. She told us how it took her a very long time to even be able to write down her affirmation. So even after she came up with her affirmation, which we're going to talk about in a minute, it took her a long time to even write it down. But then she did. And now she pushes herself and she pushes others, I think she even said, suck it up, push on through, like, like she said stuff like that, just do it, all these little things. And I love that so much, because I feel like I've taken a similar path to her. Like, there was a time where I was very, I'm not going to write this down, no way. Like, the stuff that I'm going to tell you guys is my affirmations. Like, I would not have even thought that at one point. And so just having that drive to push herself is huge, and I love seeing that and learning from her in that. So, yay.
Yeah, and I think with affirmations too, that we kind of overcome some cultural norms by growing up in the South and saying, you know what, I am going to be awesome. Like, that is so unheard of.
That is true.
In this culture. It's like, if somebody compliments you, you're like, oh no, if for example, if you sang a solo in church and somebody comes up and says, oh, that was so beautiful, and you're like, oh, well, I have had this sinus crud and it was just not up to where my standard, and you just start
making excuses. Yes.
And then basically calling them liars, because they have said that this is wonderful, and you're like, oh no, it wasn't, right? So it's like you can't have an accurate view of yourself, because you're supposed to be putting yourself down, even though inside you're like peacock, like blooming with pride that you got up on that stage and you sang that solo in front of your church. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like we do have to overcome some of those social norms. And I know that the South is not the only place. It can't be the only place that this happens. And so if you feel like you have to put yourself on a lower place, and it's not necessarily putting yourself on a pedestal, and it's not putting yourself down, it's just standing on solid ground and saying, you know what, this is what I want, and I'm going to work really hard for it.
Yeah. And that's really a good summation of what affirmations are. I mean, at the end of the day, an affirmation is just looking ahead at what you want, what do you want to achieve, where do you see yourself going, and just saying it's happened. You know, it's basically claiming that as done, even though you're still in the process of working toward it. And like Joanna said, you know, it's the combination of this affirmation and then the hard work to get to it. And you can't have one without the other, really. They go together so well. So, you know, her affirmation early on was something along the lines of, I am an author, I'm creative, you know, and that's what it took her a long time, she said, to even write it down, let alone tell it to someone, because that's her 3-step process. And that was what the challenge was. You know, first was to think about what your affirmation is going to be. What do you want to go after? What is your goal? What is your, you know, whatever. And then think that through in your mind, get it in your mind, and then write it down, put it somewhere where you can see it. And then the third step is to actually tell someone. So that's what May and I are doing on the show tonight. This is our third step.
Something interesting too is that whenever you write it down, you're supposed to write it down as if it has already happened.
Yes.
So it's not like I'm going to work really hard and maybe one day I'll be what I want to be. It is, I am what I want to be.
And that's hard.
One of the oh my goodness, it's so hard, right?
Yeah.
Because what if you fail, right?
Right. And I don't think it's natural. You know, I don't think it's natural
No.
for us to claim something in this way, you know. And it could come back to what you were talking about, you know, with our Southern heritage and, you know, the cultural norms and all of those things. That could be part of it. But it's just not natural.
Yeah. Yeah. And I thought it was interesting on one of the things that she said was that affirmations change your mind before you consciously believe it. And that's like paraphrasing, but that's basically what she said, guys. So, so you're writing this stuff down and you're speaking it out to yourself too. That was another thing. She actually records hers and listens to them. I don't know if it's on a daily basis, but I think it's close to it if it's not a daily basis. So it's not tricking your brain, but it's like it's like instilling this thought, I am what I want to be. And that makes it easier for our mindset, for us mentally to be able to do the actions that get us to that place. So that's the thought behind affirmations.
So we think they're pretty great.
Well, this is like a science experiment too, because I don't think you nor I have ever done affirmations. I know I haven't.
No, I have not.
So
I've written out, now we had our goals shows, which we did right before the show with Joanna, so that would have been episodes 35 and 36 on goals. And so we are both really big on writing down goals, and I think that I've probably written down, you know, where I want to be in a few years or something like that, but I've never done anything like this where I actually claim I am whatever, you know.
So we're going to do this. Should we do a 6-month checkup?
Oh, that's a good idea. See where we are. I mean, we've kind of...
just see how we feel about it.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, we could do a 6-month and then a 1 year.
Yeah. So when we wrote our affirmations, we did a year, you know, our affirmations for this year. And then we also did our affirmations for the whole decade, because we're just starting a decade here. So we thought, why not? You know, look ahead that far. So we actually have 2, you know, different ways of looking at affirming something for ourselves.
So Joy and I will work out the timeline on how we will update you guys, but because we've never done this before, I think it's going to be really interesting to see if it impacts us and our work ethic and the things that we choose to do with our time, and see how affirmations affect our lives. Yeah?
Yes. All right, so you want to get us started?
Yeah, I sure can. So I noticed when I was writing down my affirmations that they had a direct link to my goals. So I actually feel like affirmations are going to be the next step after goals. So you write your goals, you write your dragon goals, you write your Kachi goals, you write your pixie goals. And then after you finish that, you look at your goals and you try to find a theme, I think. This was something that I thought as I was writing them, I wrote down a whole bunch of little affirmations, and then I started noticing that there were themes. And so I put some of those together into a larger affirmation that made just more encompassing for what I wanted. So that's something I learned as I wrote, and maybe that will help you guys too. So I have 3 different types of affirmation. The first one deals with authorship, the second one deals with health, and the third one deals with relationships. My first decade affirmation is I am a productive and compensated author. So hopefully in 10 years, I will be
I am.
a productive and compensated author. So I would like to be writing, I would like to be producing things, putting them out into the world, and I would like to have people buy them. So that's my decade goal. And then I thought maybe some of the 2020 goals underneath that could be I am the author of a published poetry book.
Yay!
It feels really weird to say it out loud.
Oh, I'm so excited.
And then my second one is I am an author who knows her writing process.
That's huge.
Isn't that huge?
Yeah.
And then I am a fiction author. That's what I got for the author situation. So my second decade-long affirmation is I am health conscious. And I've not done a very good job in my life being a healthy person. And I've been in denial about it a whole lot too. So just being honest and vulnerable with you guys today. So please don't send me hate mail. It hurts. So I would like these are my affirmations for 2020, and they're ongoing in order to fulfill the decade affirmation of I am a health conscious person. The first is I care about my body. I do not abuse it. The second is I have self-control regarding food and exercise. And the third is I am comfortable in my skin and a good example for my family.
Those are great, and those are so hard. I think when we're looking inward, we're looking at ourselves. That's one of the hardest things. It really is. So you are awesome.
The thinking part was hardest for me. I don't know about you, but when she was like, the first step is to think, and I was like, no. I'm through with introspection. Just kidding.
That's an ongoing thing, May.
I listened to our first podcast. I know.
Don't you hate it when we're right?
Yeah. So those are my health affirmations. My third big one are relationships. And this one I actually found out I chose after Joanna Penn because I adored her so much. And I found it very hard to have small talk with her and to find out more about herself outside of writing. Like I would have loved to have been able to have had a conversation with her that would have been like, who is Joanna? Just not off air, not even recorded or anything like that, but just to have made a bit more of a friend. So what I realized is that I'm not very good at making people feel welcome and comfortable around me in some cases. So that's where this kind of sprung from. So my decade goal is I am a relationship conscious. So with my family, with my friends, and with strangers. So 2020 and ongoing affirmations are number one, I am a relationship starter. It's with strangers particularly. And relationships are so important. I think that relationships are probably the most important thing that we have in this world. It makes it meaningful. It makes our lives meaningful. And the way that we give to other people by wanting to get to know them and for them getting and sharing ourselves with us, I think that's such a beautiful gift that we give each other. So I want to be a relationship starter. I want to go up to strangers and be like, hey, what's your story? But in a good way, like not in a weird, creepy way. So that's what I'm going to work on. So, and then an affirmation underneath that would be, I am confident in my ability to make people feel welcome around me. And that's really what I want. I think some of the things that stop me from doing that is social anxiety and a bit of introversion. So, and I know that there are ways that I can overcome those inhibitions. I just have to find them.
That is so not easy to do.
Not. And the only thing is practice. Like, isn't that the only, I don't know if that is the only way, but I know that has to be one of the ways. And every time I practice and fail, there's this embarrassment and a bit of shame. And then you rally and then you go back into the world and remember what makes it important: relationships. So I am a relationship starter. My second one is I am a relationship builder and sustainer with my family and my friends. And the third one is, if necessary, I am a relationship ender if the relationship is toxic.
Yeah, and that's just as hard.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know what is harder. They are both terribly hard. So those are my affirmations, and thank you, Joanna, for giving us that challenge.
Yay! Congratulations, you have now spoken them. Look at you. You're awesome. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. Now I want yours and what is going on in your head.
Okay, so mine, I'm not as well-rounded with my affirmations, so I will be working on the well-rounded part. But tonight I'm going to focus on my author affirmations. So looking at this year, my affirmation for 2020 is, I am a paid author. And so what I did when I was thinking through these was I thought of where I wanted to be, and I tried to be as specific with the wording as possible to get my meaning across. So what I mean by this, a paid author, I've sold some books, but I still have bills to pay for those books that have been put out, right? So technically, I'm not a paid author yet. So I am, by the end of this year, I'm claiming it, I will have actually made money that I get to put into my pocket or not go to pay bills for the books themselves. So I am a paid author for 2020. And then for the decade, so when I started thinking about this, I was like, okay, this needs to be something big. I mean, a lot can happen in a decade. I just look back to the past year and think about all that's happened in that year, and it absolutely blows my mind. So when I thought ahead to the decade coming, and I thought through, because I've already written down my plans for publication, I already know what books I'll be working on. I kind of have my plan penciled in through 2024 already, and I kind of know what's coming after that as far as the books. So here it is for my decade affirmation. I am an internationally recognized, full-time, multi-genre indie author with my name on 25 book covers. That's a mouthful.
Yeah!
So I'm claiming
that is awesome.
So it could be that
I want to just applaud. Yay!
The full-time part, so, at first I was like, best-selling, well, best-selling can mean so many things. Like, what does that even mean? So many people are best-selling authors. I feel like that word's lost meaning. And I think for me, my desire is that, not that I'm going to make tons of money or be a millionaire or anything like that. I'm not under any illusions for that kind of thing. But that my writing can actually bring in a decent income that can be paired with the other income that I bring in to actually be an income, which would be more than what it is now. So that's what I meant by that, the full-time part. And of course, multi-genre, that I already am indie author, same with that. And then when I was thinking, okay, well, what's my number? Like, how many books? And I got to adding it all up, and I was like, you know what? 25 is not that far-fetched, because this is including the books that we write together. We've got some plans for those. I already know, I've got fantasy, I've got Southern fiction. I also will be launching into historical fiction after the fantasy, and maybe a couple more anthologies. And I already have my name on one anthology. So when I put all that together, and children's books. That was the other thing.
I was just going to say, don't forget ours. We've got our children's books.
Exactly. It's so much fun. So, when I started putting it together, 25 is totally not far-fetched at all for a decade. Mm-hmm. So, yay! I said it.
I love that. You did. And it sounded good, girl. I'm not going to lie.
So now begins the work to work toward these things that we have claimed.
That's right. We're going to pair it with action. And I think that I'm going to be more specific on some of mine, just kind of revisit my affirmations and be a little bit more specific and maybe cut down a few of those or pair them up a little bit more.
Well, and I think that the affirmations probably would be similar to goals, because we talked about that with goals, where sometimes, you set out and you've made these goals, and then as you start working toward them, maybe you have to tweak them a little bit. Maybe you realize, this goal might need to be broken down a little more, or maybe you can't achieve it in the time frame you thought. So I feel like affirmations are going to be the same, where it's going to be an ongoing, discussion with yourself of, is this still right? Is this, So I feel like they go together really well.
I feel that too. And I also feel like they do not need to we don't need to let them lie. Like, we need to pick them up every day. We need to look at them. We need to read them. We need to say them out loud. And sometimes we even need to hear them. So if you have made goals and if you have made affirmations, then don't just close the notebook and think, okay, that was done. That's the beginning. That's not the end. Just listening to Joy's affirmations made me want to tweak mine a little bit. So I would love to hear what you guys are saying, and we can maybe bat ideas back and forth. That would be cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Are we ready for our QWERTY challenge?
Yes, I'm so ready because I'm so excited about this. We're totally just taking Joanna's, but we're adding one thing to it. So, to recap what she said, she told us the 3 things to do. So first, you think about your affirmation for the year, for the decade, okay? You may not want to do a decade, or you may want to do both like we did. Either way is fine. So think about, what do you want to have achieved by that point? So think it through. Then decide what your phrase will be. And then second, write it down and put it somewhere where you can see it. Then finally, speak your affirmation out loud to someone else. And as she said, this is so, so important to do. So May and I have just done that. It is your turn. So here is our addition to the QWERTY challenge. We want you guys to, once you go through this 3-step process, to type up your affirmation, send it to us. You can do it in a social media comment. You can DM either one of us on any social media account, or you can email us at editorial@logosandmythospress.com, and that'll be in the show notes too. We want to cheer you on, and here's the thing, we will read your affirmation on a future episode of QWERTY Writing Life. Because what we want to do is we want to encourage you guys, and we want to create a community of people who share the struggles and as well as the excitement that all goes along with being a creative.
So if you guys don't want your name to be read out loud, you can say anonymous, or you can just give your first name if you would like just your first name or you know what? First name and last name works too, because we want to be able to share with each other. And if we are claiming this, then you can own it as well. But if that doesn't feel super comfortable, anonymous is so fine. But what if your affirmation sparks somebody else to get moving on their passions and their dreams? Wouldn't that be so cool? I think it would.
It is. I mean, just think how Joanna has inspired us, and that's really all started through her affirmations that have gotten her where she is. And so now hopefully our affirmations inspire some of you, and now you're going to share yours with us, and it just is going to keep going. That's pretty cool.
So guys, thank you so much for listening. We are excited to hear your affirmations, and we hope that you have an excellent week. Go make some affirmations.
Bye.
Thanks for listening until the end.
Seriously, you're a trooper.
Do you think QWERTY Writing Life is the bomb?
May, you just said the bomb.
Don't you censor me.
If you think QWERTY Writing Life rocks ice for real,
oh my word,
please rate, review, and share us with others.
If you have questions about this week's episode or want to start a conversation, you can reach us by visiting QWERTYWritingLife.podbean.com.
We'll be back next week with more candid chats for you.